All right. And hello. Welcome once again to the Beyond the Physical Summit with me, your host, Sitara Faye. I'm here with a dear friend of mine, Mr. Chaz Allen. He is the founder and CEO of Healing One, which is a sensory deprivation float tank spa here in Reno. Chaz, thank you so much for joining and playing along with us with the Beyond the Physical Summit. How are you today?
I am great. Yes, thanks for having me on. This is awesome.
Of course. Is there anything else that you would like to share with us about what inspired you to initiate your, I guess, endeavors as an entrepreneur with Healing One?
Yeah, ultimately, I was kind of in the construction industry and doing that, and thought after about 6 years, I wonder if I should do this the rest of my life. And I had a meditation that pretty much told me that I wouldn't live very long if I did continue that route. So I kept my eyes peeled wide open for what the next best thing was. And that just so happened to be a healing center and building healing centers. So it's what kind of brought me here, from electrician to energy healer and entrepreneur.
Amazing. So I know a little bit about your background, especially as an electrician, and I've always found that interesting. But what was it like? What started your healing journey? Because not all electricians can correlate and understand that electricity moves in a very similar way through our energy body. So what was it that like showed up in your life that kind of opened that doorway for you?
Um, to be completely honest, really kind of getting out into more of the festival realm and talking with people that were more open energetically. Went to a certain festival in particular and went to a talk on energy medicine because I thought, oh, energy medicine, that's weird. What does that mean? And I went to this talk, and this guy's just explaining a bunch of stuff about energy work and distance energy healing and stuff like that. And it was like he was telling me about me. And I was like, whoa, this is interesting. How does he know all this stuff about me? And so I left that festival and went home and got online and started doing some research around energy healing. And I came across quantum touch, and they were like, here, buy this book and teach yourself energy healing. And I kind of thought, oh, that sounds like BS. And so I bought two books and taught myself energy healing, and then kept growing and progressing, taking classes and workshops while also being an electrician, which is really cool to like be playing with more of the physical side of energy and then adding the subtle side of energy. And they're really, surprise, really similar. Um, and yeah, so that kind of got me into that realm of, okay, this is kind of an interesting piece, and started playing with that. And it's kind of funny how I started my energy healing path is I just put on Facebook, hey everyone, I'm doing this energy healing thing. You can like trade me for a sandwich or just buy me a drink or something, and I'll do this healing session on you. So pretty funny and humble beginnings. But yeah,
Absolutely.
that's how that pieced together. And then I kept kind of doing electrical work for another couple of years and kind of had that epiphany, like I said earlier, and then started looking around, and I was like, okay, well, I can only do so many sessions one on one. What if I create a healing center that, not only I have to facilitate sessions, but I can create a space that more facilitation can happen, and kind of there's a bigger footprint from that area. So that's what got me excited about healing centers and Healing One in particular.
Yeah, I hear you on that and I resonate completely. It was doing the one-to-ones is like I can only do so many one-to-ones. What
Right.
happens? And that's what led me to, okay, well, I want to teach teachers. I want to educate the entrepreneurs because then it's like the whole thing just spreads like wildfire. It spreads a lot more and simultaneously those humble beginnings. I think I went from being, Miss Party Central USA to anyone like an energy healing or psychic reading. Oh man, I lost so many friends during that phase. It was like a full
Right.
180. Yeah, it was quite hysterical. That was also around the first time I stopped drinking too. So um those humble beginnings, they're ripe there for us. And
Which is kind of cool though, right?
yeah,
Is we really like that partying life, that festival lifestyle kind of is what triggered or woke up that piece in us, so we could be like, oh wait, there's more here and I can do more, and I'm actually not stuck in this position or this smaller space. I actually can grow and expand.
absolutely. For me, I can't believe I'm about to say this, but for me, it was taking psychedelics in like a party kind of way, and then let's say the booze wearing off, or the cocaine wearing off, or whatever else it was wearing off, and then the psychedelic staying, and in that kind of uncomfortable space where you're not able to sleep. I was amazed at how much internal processing and emotional stuff I was healing in that space, that ultimately was actually what led me away from drinking and led me away from, the drugs that I see as ego based rather than opening us to our soul presence. I've spoken about it so many times that I am an advocate for responsible and controlled environments of with a clear set intention around psychedelics, because
Totally.
of how much they've helped me to heal. And so yes, that festival scene, that festival space, it's like it holds such a beautiful container for that kind of exploration to happen, that I can attest to 100 times over was a huge part of my journey of awakening as well, of being, a buck wild 21-year-old and just going for it, and then be like, wait, there's definitely something very important happening.
Yeah, and it's all really divine and intrinsic that that is the way that it is laid out, because we, maybe without those experiences, it wouldn't have kind of triggered something or alerted something to like, hey, there's more here in this space. So I mean, I attribute a lot of my success ultimately to my psychedelic use, because it has opened my mind to realms and thoughts and feelings that I probably would have never reached sober, and not to say you should go and do that, but like to each their own kind of thing.
Well, I do say that, but also in a responsible and controlled type of environment, like knowing what you're getting into, knowing that there are experienced people that you trust in that kind of environment. Because I think that curiosity, especially that curiosity for people that haven't kind of opened that door, it's that the possibilities are there, and that, I mean, MDMA is now becoming more legalized. We've known that it's been something that opens up connection of head, heart, and communication that helps to heal relationships. Especially, I think the conversations that really struck me the most with that is if a partner has cancer and is passing away, but between the two partners are not able to open that door of communication of like what's really going on in that kind of depth. It's like there's so much beauty that can come from these ways, and we've been so deeply programmed that, it's like we have that image of the egg on the frying pan that's like, this is your brain on drugs, when it's like that's just not simply the thing. It's just not simply the thing. And then you have alcohol that's so wildly socially acceptable, and also probably one of the most detrimental things that we can do to our energy body, to our vibration, to our consciousness, to our level of judgment, to bringing out our best selves. It's like there's like a contortion of what happened by means of these substances that really do bring the illumination of human consciousness to the forefront of what's available for us.
Totally. Yeah, I completely agree. It's really interesting how what is legal and what is not legal. You really start to think about that and like, oh, interesting. That doesn't make
Yes.
any sense.
That's a whole wormhole in and of itself, which we will leave for maybe another day. Maybe it'll come back up. But I want to ask you a little bit more about, because like a healing center, there's so many different things, there's so many different ways, right, that you could create a healing center.
Right.
What specifically inspired you to do something with sensory deprivation float tanks. And for those people that are listening and don't know, can you also describe a little bit of what that is?
Yeah, so ultimately a float tank is about 1,000 pounds of Epsom salt integrated into 200 gallons of water, roughly heated to your skin temperature, external temperature 93.5, 94 degrees. And ultimately, it's a no light, no sound, no gravity experience where you can fully rest, relax, and rejuvenate. You're decompressing your brainwave frequency from alpha and beta into theta, more of a meditational state. But you're also absorbing the mineral magnesium through your skin transdermally and receiving magnesium on a greater level than you can orally. Um, so, I mean, floating is, such a phenomenal modality that is kind of unfortunately up and coming. It kind of died out a little bit in the 80s, but it's been around since the 70s. But when I had the idea or the vision or the download or whatever you'd like to call it of Healing One, I started looking at modalities that I wanted to add to it. And obviously, I'm an energy healer, so I wanted that. And then I was like, well, massage, body work, everyone needs that too. So that makes sense. And then I was really looking for a solid, like, foundational modality. And I looked around, couldn't really find anything. I was like, yeah, infrared sauna, that's great too. Oxygen therapy, that's great as well. And we have all of those things. But what happened is I remembered hearing about sensory deprivation one day. And I remember talking to a guy and he was like, yeah, there's no light, no sound, no gravity. And you just lay in this thing and float. And I remember thinking when he said that, I was like, that has to be the best thing you can do for yourself. Like, get away from all of this. Like, don't get me wrong. We love all this light and sound and music and, but we also love the opposite of that. No light, no sound, sitting in our bed, it's completely dark. We're like, so I started kind of looking into that. And I actually, I was living in Elko at the time, and I went to Salt Lake City because that was the closest float tank to me. And I went and floated, and it was really interesting because I was so excited for it. I was like, okay, I'm gonna get in this and keep my eyes open the whole time and soak up every inch of this experience. And that's what I did. And it's pretty interesting because when you cut off your external stimulation and you're that awake and ready for something, your brain creates something. So I ultimately kind of hallucinated my first time in a float tank, and I didn't like it. I was like, oh no, this isn't good. I don't want to do this. That's a bad idea. And I came out and told the guy about it, the float owner, and he was like, oh man, that happens often. You got to try it 3 times. And I was like, well, that's a little salesy. And so I listened to him. I was like, okay, cool, sure. Like, I'll try it 3 times. And then I bought a couple more, and I came back and he was totally right. Sensory deprivation is unlike anything else. So you have to try it a couple times. It's most commonly related to, floating in outer space or being in the womb again, right? Which, that's kind of hard to remember or experience. And so after I tried about 3 to 5 floats, and even on my second float, I just felt so much more relaxed and rejuvenated. It reminds me of, like, we go home at the end of the day and we're so tired and beat up and our battery's on 5%. And same with our phone. Our phone's on 5%, right? It's been used all day long. Well, we hop in our bed and we squirm all night long. And sometimes we sleep well, and sometimes we don't. And sometimes we wake up about 40% charged or 30% charged, and we wake up and our phone's 100% charged. So floating for me is pretty much recharging my batteries, because every time I come out of that thing, I just feel like a brand new person. I'm just like, oh my gosh, everything's brighter and smells better and my body doesn't hurt. So after about a couple of tries, I realized it was like such a phenomenal healing modality. And from that point on is when I really started diving deep and starting understanding benefits and floating a lot more. And yeah, that has now kind of been the foundation of Healing One. And it's, been amazing. I mean, we have tens of thousands of floats under our belt now, and people love it. 250 something monthly members. It has really, kind of taken off, and not only just in Reno, but like in the world in general. Like when I started the healing center in 2015, I think there was only 300 centers worldwide.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the last count I got on it is we're almost to like 2,000 centers worldwide. So it has really taken off. A lot more people are floating and benefiting it. We have scientists that are just doing so much with clinical flotation now to really show the world how impactful this modality is. So, like I'm really thankful that I found that, because I really find it to be such a crucial, helpful experience for not only myself, but my team, my friends, my family. I mean, you obviously have floated a bunch, and it is just really kind of, it's weird because every time I talk to someone, I feel like I'm selling them snake oil. I'm like, it's good for this and this and this and this and this and this. The other day someone texted me, they're like, hey, is it good for allergies? And I and I just researched really fast. It's good for allergies, and it is. And so I was like, wow, that makes a lot of sense, because you're laying in so much salt. So you're kind of, inhaling that crystalline salt, and you're also decompressing from your environment, which is helping everything relax in your system. So, I mean, it's pretty good for damn near everything. Maybe not a broken leg, maybe just wait a little bit on that.
Yeah, I even with the allergies thing, my perspective of that is that I really do believe that a lot of allergies are very emotional, and they're
Mm,
rooted in an emotional agitation. And so if you're in the float spa and you have the epiphanies, I often like if I'm wrestling with something is actually when I like to go into a float tank the most, because I'm like emotionally like dwelling or wrestling, like, there's opposing forces within me that's like, trying to pick one way or not, a metaphoric in the road or something. And I find that
right.
being in the float tank helps me to clarify so much of what's going on with my own emotions, and
Mm,
like you're saying, like eliminates the noise and the distractions to just get super clear. So I could see how that would help with allergies in and of itself, just by the emotional agitation that
totally.
is there. And some people think that it's like, different things in the air. Do allergies exist? Yes. In the same way, also, that, yes, do stomach bugs exist? Yes. But if you really look at the times when you have gotten sick, like let's say stomach bug sick because it's so intense, could you
Right.
also find a very specific, direct, and a very deep correlation to emotional turmoil that was going on in your life as well? That is that purge that we talk about, like with ayahuasca ceremonies, because a purge is a part of it, and it's like getting
Right.
well, but it's that purge.
Mm-hmm.
I see floating as a very subtle and a very gentle and easy way to allow that nervous system to calm in such a way that the energy itself just moves because there's no resistance.
Totally. Yeah, way more subtle than ayahuasca. Or
Way more.
yeah, if you're trying to do some heavy diving, maybe come into the float tank a couple times first and see if you can find something there before. And then don't get me wrong, they're all great. Ayahuasca is amazing and is, done so much for so many people. But like the saying that I always come back to with floating is, everywhere you go, there you are. And with that, you get in the float tank and there's nothing in there. It is you with you, salt and water and darkness and no sound.
That was actually what I wanted to bring up as my next question, because my first float, I was so scared. Like so scared. And I was like, what is this? Like, why am I so terrified? It doesn't sound like something that would be so, you know, freaks people out. And my work freaks people out all the time. So like I get I get that. But I'd love to hear from you as far as to speaking to why fears come up, and why would somebody be afraid to get into the float tank? How would you describe that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it has a lot to do with the world we live in, right? We live in a society where we always have something. you see people nowadays out eating breakfast by themselves. They're not just like looking around at people, they're staring at their phone, and if they're not staring at the phone, then they have people there and they're really engaged there. So we're really, our society is really overwhelmed these days. And so disconnecting from that can be challenging. You hear about it all the time. People are like, oh, I'm lonely and no one's there for me. And it's like, well, what do you, but are you really? Like, you go to work every day, you work with 50 people. Like, are you really that alone? And so I think it's a little bit of a, epidemic in that we are just inundated with information constantly that kind of leaves us wanting more. I mean, I'm no better. I'm the same way. I'm sitting there for 5 minutes. I'm like, what's my phone doing? Oh, what am I doing on my phone? Oh, I don't need that. So really being overwhelmed and inundated with so much information constantly, I think is really the big challenge there, because when you go in a float tank, there really truly is nothing. A guy made a joke one time. He's like, hey, do you have a little sandwich bag? And I was like, for what? And he's like, so I can put my phone in it and I can play on it in the I was like, what do you know? So it is really challenging, and I think some people have some challenges with claustrophobia too. But I have recently realized that there is actually a big difference there, because claustrophobia is actually just kind of the fear of enclosed spaces, right? But with floating, it's an enclosed space that you have easy access to get in and out at any time. So I think that takes another step into agoraphobia, where it's like, afraid of enclosed spaces that you can't get out of, right? So it's actually not a lot of claustrophobia. It's more of the agoraphobia, where you're really scared that you're going to be entrapped in this space and you can't get out. And so we always tell everyone, like, please come see the center. Come walk in our doors. We'll show you a room. We'll show you how easy it is to get in and out. We'll show you that we literally couldn't lock you in there if we tried. Like, it does not work that way. And so, like, helping people become comfortable with the unknown is a really big job that you and I both have, right? It's like, people don't really understand this subtle world so much. They don't understand why it's so important to spend an hour in the dark by themselves. And it makes sense, because our world, like I said, is overwhelmed. It's inundated. It's crazy out there ultimately. And what I've found over the last 8 years running this business is that people are really, really hesitant at first. And they will come in multiple times and I'll look it over and they'll ask me all the questions and dig, trying to find something that will allow them to walk away from this and not feel bad about it. But they don't ever find it. And so what happens is they end up trying it. And they're like, I'm going to leave the door wide open and I'm just going to have my cell phone right there to call you. And if anything happens, and what happens almost every single time, they come out of the room after 60 to 90 minutes and they're like, Chaz, guess what? And I'm like, what happened? And they're like, I shut the door and I stayed in the whole time. And I was like, and they're like, it was so great. It was beautiful. I was just laying there and floating. And I was like, yeah, pretty nice, because it is solitary confinement to the self, right? But it is literally the most comfortable you can get in solitary confinement. Like, you're literally laying in a waterbed, not on a waterbed, like in the waterbed. And so I feel that it really just has that rough stigma of, and in the past, the world has tortured people with sensory deprivation, right? Solitary confinement, stuff like that. So I think that's kind of in people's heads too. And as we kind of, the industry is now changing sensory deprivation to the term flotation therapy, right? Because really that's what it is more of a therapy. It is more therapeutic to rest and relax and decompress. And they're actually even going away from sensory deprivation and looking at actually as more sensory enhancement, because the fact of taking everything away for an hour or 90 minutes, what happens is it actually heightens all of your senses, right? Kind of like if you're in a dark cave or a dark room, what happens is you eventually start to see a little bit because your senses start to be heightened. So they're actually calling it more sensory enhancement nowadays, which is really phenomenal in my opinion, because that's what it really is. And that's what I was just saying a minute ago. When I come out, it's like brighter and it smells better. And I'm just like, how is this possible? So it really is the opposite of what you think it is. And I feel like that's a really important thing for people to start paying attention to is we know now that seeing isn't believing. We know now in our world that feeling is actually believing. And so if you can come and feel into an experience, feel into a healer like yourself or myself, right? Everything changes, right? How many people have you had that are really hesitant to work with you and you have one session with you and then they're like, oh my gosh, sign me up. I need to work with you for a year. Like that happens all the time to me and flotation. We have people that come in, they're hesitant, they're like, membership? No, never. They come out of 60, 90-minute flow, they're like, about that membership, can we do that, please? That would be wonderful. So really just, I think we are still kind of looking at the past, what solitary confinement has done and how that has been kind of locked down as this bad thing when really that is one of the other things that I attribute a lot of my success to is reflection, right? And that reflection comes up in my meditations. I'm like, hey, how was that interaction with that person today? Could it have went better? Did it go great? Like what happened? And that solitary confinement, that meditation, that reflection really is what just helps me bloom even more. I'm like, oh wow, I did good here, or I could have done a little bit better here, or that person, yes, move them out of my life, kind of thing.
So
So
there's a point to what you were speaking to that I really want to highlight. And it was like when somebody's going into a room, right? And they're about to get in for the first time. And it's like how much fear comes up. They're like, I'm going to leave my phone here so that I can call you or I can yell out the door, or like whatever. It's like preparing for that safety net when 1,000 times over, nothing bad is going to happen. Right.
yeah.
And similarly, I know nothing bad is going to happen because I've been on the other side of that. But there's a really important, I think, aspect that we can magnify here as the awareness of how our own inner world. Because like when I was afraid and I went in, it was just simply that I was afraid to face things that came up in the tank that I wasn't facing. It was
Right.
that, one of my favorite prayers is, especially in times of turmoil or struggle, is please show me what I am refusing to see.
Mm,
Please tell me what I am refusing to hear. What is it that I am blocking out so that I don't have the realization that will actually help me grow? And so that the awareness of like the fear that is so present, but the fear being such a construct of what is being made up in the mind that is like that ego structure almost panicking because the breakthrough is just about to happen. And the breakthrough is the expansion on the other side. And if our ego structure is designed to keep us in that like little safety bubble of our own comfort zone, but then the fear of stepping into, like you're saying, a womb, the fear of stepping into the space that is so comfortable, that's so nurturing, that's so healing, that's so rejuvenating, becomes one of the things that we are so afraid of. It's not actually that we're afraid of, but that fear that just starts getting triggered around like what's on the other side, what's going to shift, what's going to happen, that is that own inner world kind of accessibility of what we might find inside. And is
mhm,
what we might find inside something that we can accept within ourselves, or is it something that we're going to have to change within ourselves, or is it also our own power and our own illumination that we're hiding from and devaluing? And that's what I really love about the float spa, is that it's just such a gentle way to look in these mirrors. It's such a gentle way to feel these things within ourselves, like you would say, reflection. It's like it's just such a gentle and nurturing environment to be held in probably some really uncomfortable mirrors that we don't always like looking in. But then we
mm,
come out and it's like that energy within us has been dissipated, which would also, I'm sure, attribute to feeling lighter, feeling better, feeling less stress, feeling more relieved. There's so much beauty in that.
Yeah, there really is. And I think it's important that we kind of, push past those challenges. I know that, those uncomfortable times are just that, super uncomfortable. And 9 times out of 10, it's because there's something better on the other side, something greater, something brighter, something different, and that's the thing is like with me being an electrician, it was so scary to leave that job making good money. And I mean, every single person I know thought I was insane. They're like, you're going to start your own business. You're an electrician. You're fine. You're doing good. Keep the job. And, I just knew that there was something bigger and better for me and I had to go find it. And I'm so glad I did, like I am almost 10 years into this work and I have helped thousands, tens of thousands of people just relax, just breathe. And I might not have even connected or talked to them, but like I had a hand in helping them relax. And that's what I think is really important for people to really recognize is what you're not doing is not only creating a disservice for you, but it's creating a disservice for your entire community, for your friends, for your family members. Like if you're out there and have a thought, a vision of something that you feel you should do and you're not doing it, you are doing a disservice. And I know that because I almost did that. And I'm so glad I did it. And now I'm on the other side of that. I'm like, I'm helping so many people. I'm so glad I didn't do that. And so it's really powerful to recognize that because we all need to be what we're here for. And that's very challenging. Don't get me wrong. I always tell people it's going to be the hardest thing you've ever done, but it'll be the most worthwhile for sure. And that really truly resonates still. 8 years later, the business has been open for 8 years. I've been working on this for 9.5 years. And so almost a decade deep into this stuff. And yes, it's still challenging. Every day is challenging, no matter what you do. And it's like so rewarding. I have people come out of massages all the time. They're like, that's the best massage I've ever had in my whole life. Oh my gosh, I'm going to go home and take a nap. Or like, that's the best float. I've never felt more relaxed in my life. And I'll tell you what, when someone tells you something like that, it shifts something and you're like, okay, all this hard work and all of this suffering and all of this, everything I went through, all this stress, it just goes poof, gone.
That moment, I talk about that moment all the time with my clients. And it's like that moment is also the gift that I feel I'm giving them because it is that point of so much reward, like you're saying, that makes all of the stuff, all of the steps, all the challenging, all the tears, all the like, God, what am I doing? Thinking you're crazy, bumping into the edges. Like it's all there. It's all part of it, especially when you're forging a path that has not been forged before.
Right.
Especially when you are like I say it all the time, I've been the goose in the headwinds and it gets a bit exhausting to be the one that is spearheading something consistently all the time. But when when you take a moment to stop and pause or have that moment of reflection of that relief, there's like a bridge that is connected, that there's a bridge that goes between you and that person, that when they feel that illumination and they feel that point of ascension is really what it is, that their vibration has increased, you feel the bump of it. Like you feel that energetic transference of energy of like, oh, I feel your release. And not only do I feel your release, like you don't comprehend, or that person doesn't know all of the things that you've had to go through in order for them to experience that moment. And because
Right.
they've experienced that moment, it's like rewarding times 10 and beyond to know that you had that hand in it. But there's something also that you mentioned that I want to speak to and again highlight and kind of open that door a little bit more, is
Yeah,
that
please.
you said that there was a moment within you, right, where you could have chosen to be an electrician, but you knew that there was something greater. Can you speak to that knowing?
Yeah. It's really interesting. It actually took me a while to understand. And I actually didn't quite understand it until I took a class on self-validation. Go figure. And because like I could see the vision. I could see the center. I could see the rooms. I could see everything so clearly. As soon as I had the download, boom, it was there. It was imprinted. Just like we're talking now, it was that real for me. But it wasn't real for anyone else. And that was really challenging. It was kind of like having this ghost walk around with me. And I'm like, look at the ghost. And people are like, dude, you are crazy. Like, there's nothing there. I'm like, it's right here. Like, and so really it, like I said, is like, it even got to a point, and I love to share this, that there's a video on YouTube of me somewhere where I was starting Healing One and I was so desperate. I was like, just help me build. I'm just going to help everyone. Help me help everyone. Please just donate to my Indiegogo. And it's so hilarious looking back on it because I was so desperate. And it was shortly after that that I took a class on self-validation. And the lady came right up to me and was like, if you believe in what you're going to do and what you're doing so much, why do you need anyone else to believe in you? And it was just like a light bulb. It just turned on. I was like, oh my God, you're right. I don't need anyone to validate me. Like, I see it so clearly. Like, I can validate myself. What am I doing being so desperate and like clawing at people to give me $10 so I can start this business? And that was really like the aha moment for me, was checking in on my self-validation. Like, if I validated myself enough, if I believed this vision that I could see so truly, so purely, like, why do you need anyone else to tell you it's a good idea? Like, why do you need anyone else to tell you you can be a healer, or you can go get that degree? Or like, why do we need that? Like, we really ultimately don't. And that's kind of what I proved to myself, and I proved to the world, is like, yes, I've had tons of help from people, over and over and over. And it's not to say that you don't need help, but if you are coming from a space of lack and desperation, then you're already a step behind, because once I validated myself, once I was like, oh, duh, like, I know this is going to happen and this is the truth. Why am I even tripping on other people not understanding this and seeing this? It's my vision. Obviously, they can't see it. And so really, coming in and checking in and really understanding that, like, we all have some sort of purpose. We are here for some sort of reason. That was really intrinsic in my system. And then to find this path and this passion, and then from there to find the security in the self, and the knowing that this is going to happen, that this is a thing. I saw Healing One, as just as the McDonald's you pass by the street. I was like, oh, there it is. That's Healing One. There's their building. And so it was really powerful just to step into that space, into the space of like, oh yeah, I see it and I know it. Like, I don't need anyone else's thoughts, views, opinions. And then stepping out of the space of lack, because that's what it was. That space of desperation was, I was in lack. I needed everyone else to tell me I had a good idea. They're like, yeah, Chaz, this is a good idea. That's what I wanted from everyone. And no one gave that to me. My parents didn't give it to me. My friends didn't give it to me. I even had people come up to me after the fact, after Healing One had been going for years, good friends of mine. They're like, hey, I just, like, no harm to you, but I just didn't think you could do it. And I was like, yeah, I appreciate your honesty and welcome. Welcome to reality that I created and manifested out of practically nowhere.
And without your help.
Yeah. And also without your love.
Just
So
kidding.
thanks.
We don't have to be snarky about it. But I hear you. I'm telling you, when I first wanted to be well, I have a degree in psychology. My family was like, "What are you gonna do with that?" And I'm like, "Well, I want to help people because I needed help." And there were
Right.
people that helped me, and like that, there was a fuel there for me of wanting to give back. But then when I took a step into like the world of psychic, my family was like, "What? Like,
Yeah.
what are you gonna do? How are you gonna make money? How you you know, how are you gonna feel yourself? And there was just some like you're saying, there was something that was so strong moving through me that I could not deny it. Like if
Right.
I tried to avoid it, I couldn't. And in the times that I have tried to avoid it, I've gotten in car accidents. I've had like these crazy things happen because I was not focused on my path. And these life events happen that like pop me right back on. And there's a point where it's almost like your fate is inevitable, even though I do believe that we can choose our destiny, meaning we can activate our free will to choose to step on that path. But no matter what, your higher self is still your guide there with you at all times. Your higher self is still going to say, okay, I'm going to connect you to this person at this time. You better be ready to receive it. And I've definitely been guilty of squandering opportunities or pushing people away that wanted to help because there was a part of me that was more committed to the desperation or the lack than the desire to grow and to expand and to step into my power and be an illuminating light. And because all that changes our lives. Like
Right.
every single choice we make to step into the path of our destiny changes our life by means of where we're hiding and how we show up in integrity and how we show up in consistency. But that desire to build that vision, that desire to show up, it's from my experience, it's absolutely unwavering. It is the thing that has been constant for me for 14 years and has never gone away. And I felt it in myself since I was a little girl. But like, there were so many years that I was lost. There's so many years that I was lost and I didn't have the connection to people that were inspiring or role models that would help be way showers in the way that I hope I'm showing up for a lot of people in the world now because it's who I want to it's the role that I want to play. It's a person that I want to be. Um,
Right.
and all of that has come from a true inner divine knowing that you spoke about and that wisdom and that drive and desire to be your own strongest ally and your own greatest teacher, to believe in yourself in those moments where it's just not coming from anywhere else.
Well, and another piece of it too that I've realized, because I've talked to a lot of people about this, and they're like, "How did you find your path? How did you find your passion? It seems so easy for you. You found it so young." And I was like, "Well, first, it wasn't easy, and so what the other piece that I kind of feel like is what I saw in my small hometown was no one really believed that they could be anything greater than what their parents were and or their grandparents or the people around them, or like even when I went in school, in high school, we had a project to be like, what are you going to be when you grow up? And there was like 5 things you could be. It wasn't even like entrepreneur wasn't even on there. Like anything I do wasn't on that list. And so I found that what I did is a lot of people take this idea of what they're here for, their purpose, their passion, and they just throw it to the back of their mind like, oh, I'll never be this. And what I did was very much the opposite. I was like, I had it right here at the front of my mind. I was like, where is it? What is this thing? Am I electrician? Am I going to be an electrician? Let's try this out for a couple of years. Not so much. Oh, energy healing. Oh, energy healing. Whoa, that's cool. And then it was like, boom, healing center. I was like, oh, that is it. I am here to put healing centers on the planet. That is it. And if you throw it at the back of your mind, then you're giving up. That's the disservice that I'm talking about. Like we are, I don't know the statistic, but it took a lot for us to get here, and we're here. And so let's make some moves. And that's what I recommend is like keep it at the forefront of your mind. If you think there is something better for you out there, then keep that right here. Be looking for it. Try different jobs, go to different talks, go to different experiences, like go to a festival, talk to people that you maybe wouldn't talk to normally. Like there is a lot that can come out of the mystery in life that if you just give yourself this much courage, and keep it at the forefront of your mind, your entire life can change for the better, for the the magical life that could be. So
Hmm.
that's something I think is very important with all of that as well.
Yeah, and following the spark of that intuitive ping. It's
Yeah.
because like you're saying, like energy healing. Woo! It's like there's an element to the magnetism. And sometimes it's like following a cookie crumb trail, right? Like when I was living in Bali, I kept getting this ping. I would go to this restaurant and it was like I would be at home minding my business and all of a sudden I would just get this ping like you got to go there right now. Like there's someone that you're going to meet. It's a divine appointment, just go. And it actually became like a joke between me and another girlfriend of mine because I'm not kidding, like 3 or 4 times it was her. And we both showed up at the restaurant and we were like, I knew I was coming to meet you. Like it was just such a funny thing. But it's when we brush those little pings off, and we're like,
Right.
no, right now I'm busy or whatever. And those impulses or those pings that come through, it's like it may seem menial, right? To go to this coffee shop at this time, but you don't know who you're going to run into. And that conversation creates a pivot that in 3 months creates another conversation that in 4 months brings you on stage and so it's like those very subtle pings also, they lead us to that because our higher self is constantly guiding us. Our inner being is constantly trying to put us in front of those opportunities that are specifically and divinely designed for us. And floating, I think, is such a beautiful analogy in that space of allowance because you go into the float spot, you're there, you're in a full state of allowance. There's no resistance to whatever it is that's there. And that's where the guidance, the insights, the reflections, the clarity, it's like it all comes through in such a beautiful way.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Chaz, I want to say thank you so much for sharing so much of your journey and your wisdom and your inspiration with us. I know that you have mentioned that you do distant sessions and that sort of thing as well, in case people aren't living in Reno, Nevada, and you can look up Healing One. It's just spelt like it sounds, Healing One. You can look it up that way. But if you're not in Reno, how is it that people can get in touch with you?
Yeah, so either on our social media platforms, Facebook or Instagram, I think I'm pretty sure our Instagram for Healing One is Healing One World, right? Because that's really the mission. But I also am on there as Chazman Flow. You can reach out to me directly, or you can also reach me through the center. And like you said, I do distance healing sessions, which work phenomenal. It's insane. That was kind of the cool thing about COVID is I just went all distance, and people were like, "How is this still working so well?" And I was like, "Well, I just kind of stopped asking questions and just kept doing it." So yeah, distance sessions are phenomenal. You can book me through the center or reach out to me through the Instagram. But yeah, my pleasure and my honor to be on with you today. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm so excited for everything you got going on with this summit, and I really look forward to being part of it more and more.
Yeah, thank you. And just a little fun fact for people who are still here listening is that I think Chaz and I did an initial interview. It might have been one of my first like initial interviews in the chill lounge of the first Healing One, which I do think is actually still posted on YouTube. So
It is.
maybe even just for fun, I'll post that link in the description here so that people can find it. But we've been baby entrepreneurs growing through this field of like our own creation together. And so, yeah, in friendship and also entrepreneurialism, the whole ride, I just want to say thank you so much for your presence in my world and my life. Cheers to more. That's all I got to
Cheers to
say about
more,
that. Cheers to more.
and cheers to
All
us.
right. And so, for those of you that are still here, thank you so much for listening. We appreciate your time. Absolutely sending love and blessings your way. And I'll see you again in the next chat. Mwah! Ciao, ciao.